My name is Julia Foster, and at 32, I've built a life I'm proud of. I work as a data analyst in Orlando, Florida, climbing the ladder at a leading tech company and earning more than I ever imagined. It's a world away from my childhood, when everything fell apart at age 9. After my parents' divorce, my mother walked out, leaving my dad and me to struggle alone. I fought for every opportunity, determined to rise above those early hardships. For years I believed I had buried that pain. But one autumn evening, a knock at my apartment door brought it all back. My mother had somehow discovered my success, and she didn't come to reconnect. She came with my half-brother, demanding money. Their words were bold, shameless, dripping with entitlement. It wasn't just a request, it was a betrayal that cut deep. I didn't yet know how far they were willing to go, or what secrets they were hiding, but I was about to find out. If you've ever faced betrayal from family, share your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true life stories. Growing up in Ohio, my life changed forever when my mother, Marie Stone, walked out on my dad, David Foster, and me. She'd grown distant for months, until one evening she packed a suitcase and left without a word. Later, Dad told me she had fallen for another man who promised her a better life. The divorce was quick, leaving us with a small house, too many bills, and too little hope. Mom didn't just leave, she disappeared. Years later, I learned she'd remarried and had a son, my half-brother, Caleb Grant. She never called or visited. Once a year, a birthday card would arrive, short, impersonal, and colder than silence. Dad gave everything he had to keep us afloat. He ran a small diner, flipping pancakes from dawn to midnight, scrubbing counters with rough, tired hands. Some days, he came home with less than $50. Rent was late, the fridge often empty, but he never complained. Even exhausted, he'd still ask about my day, his voice soft with warmth. I'll never forget. At 13, I couldn't bear watching him struggle alone. I started babysitting, then stocking shelves, cleaning houses, and delivering newspapers before sunrise. Every dollar went toward groceries or the electric bill. Dad told me I should be a kid, not a provider, but helping him was my way of coping with Mom's absence. School became my escape. I joined the math club and stayed late, pouring myself into equations and problem sets. Dad helped me study whenever he could, saying I was stronger than our circumstances. His faith in me kept me going, even when I doubted myself. Still, the pain of abandonment lingered. I often stared at Mom's old photos, wondering why I wasn't enough for her to stay. By high school, I'd learned to rely only on myself. I saved every cent, studied hard, and vowed never to depend on anyone again. Dad was my anchor, but I knew I needed to build a future of my own. My way out was education. I buried myself in my studies, and with my guidance counselor's help, earned a full scholarship to a state university to study data analytics, a field that matched my love for logic and problem solving. That scholarship became my escape route. Even with tuition covered, I still had to pay for books, rent, and meals. So I juggled multiple jobs, waiting tables, working weekends as an office assistant, and cleaning offices at night. I was up by 5 a.m. and asleep after midnight, scraping by but refusing to give up. The exhaustion was brutal, but I pushed through it. By graduation, I had my degree, honors, and an offer from a top tech company in Orlando. Moving there felt like stepping into a new world. I started as a junior analyst, and within 5 years, became a senior leading my own projects. Success brought stability, but I never forgot Dad. Once my income grew, I began sending him $500 a month to help with bills. Later, I covered his car repairs and even bought him a new fridge when his broke. He'd protest, but his voice always cracked with pride when he said, "You're my greatest accomplishment." Those words meant more to me than any promotion. Mom, on the other hand, remained a ghost. Her yearly birthday cards still came, short, lifeless messages that reawakened old questions. Why did she leave? Why didn't she care? I pushed those thoughts away and focused on work and the quiet joy of my father's support. Life in Orlando felt complete. I bought a cozy apartment downtown, built strong friendships, and finally felt at peace. I thought I had closed that chapter of my life for good, until that autumn evening. The knock on my door changed everything. When I opened it, my mother stood there, smiling as if no time had passed, with Caleb by her side. Seeing her after more than 20 years was surreal, equal parts shock and ache. She reached out for a hug I couldn't return. Caleb barely looked up, mumbling a greeting while scrolling on his phone. Inside, Mom's eyes darted around my apartment, taking in the furniture, the city view. She started with small talk, how much she'd missed me, how proud she was, but it felt rehearsed. Then her tone shifted. "I heard you're doing really well," she said. "Caleb's starting college soon, tuition's around 60,000, and we were hoping you could help, maybe 3,000 a month." Her words landed like a punch. It wasn't just the request, it was the entitlement behind it. Caleb smirked, glanced around, and said, "Nice place. Kind of small for someone making good money." Then he kicked his sneakers up on my coffee table, like he owned it. My stomach turned. This wasn't set a reunion. It was a setup. Mom painted a picture of hardship, saying they were barely getting by. Her tone was soft, but her eyes were calculating. She dropped hints about my salary, saying family helps family, right? That word family hit hard. Where was she when Dad and I had nothing? When I worked nights to buy groceries? Part of me wanted to believe she'd changed, that this was her way of reconnecting. But the timing, the sudden interest, it didn't add up. Caleb interrupted her story to complain about his dorm and how he deserved a better car. His arrogance mirrored hers. I asked how they found me, and Mom brushed it off, saying she'd heard through old friends. That vague answer only raised more doubts. I told them I needed time to think. 60,000 wasn't a small favor. Mom's smile faltered, and Caleb muttered something about me being stingy. They left soon after, Mom hugging me a little too long before walking out. When the door closed, I stood there torn between anger and a painful flicker of hope. I hated myself for feeling both. The next morning, her text came asking to meet again. I agreed, hoping for clarity. We met at a crowded cafe in downtown Orlando. The hum of voices filled the air as I spotted them in a corner booth. Mom wore that same practiced smile. Caleb slouched, glued to his phone. As I sat down, a knot formed in my stomach. Their presence dragged me right back into a past I'd tried so hard to escape. I wanted answers, maybe even a real connection, but their eyes revealed the truth. This wasn't about family. Mom began with a soft, practiced tone. "Julia, I've missed you so much," she said, reaching for my hand. I pulled back, keeping my guard up. She launched into a story about why she'd been absent all those years, voice trembling just enough to seem sincere. "Your dad made it impossible for me to stay in touch," she claimed. "He shut me out, kept you from me. I tried, Julia. I really did." Her words twisted the truth. I knew too well. Dad had begged her to call, to visit, but she had chosen her new life over us. The betrayal cut deeper now than it had as a child. She painted herself as a victim, saying she'd struggled ever since the divorce, barely scraping by. "Caleb's future is at stake," she said urgently. "We need your help to get him through college." Before I could respond, Caleb chimed in smugly. "Yeah, I need a car to get around campus. Something nice, like a Mustang, and a new phone. This one's trash." The demands were absurd. $30,000 for a car, 1,000 for a phone. Expectations I had never promised. I clenched my coffee cup, anger rising. "You stir asking for a car and a phone on top of the $60,000? I asked, voice steady but sharp. Caleb rolled his eyes. "You stir loaded, Julia. What's Sep's the big deal?" he snapped. Mom interjected, pleading, "We stir family, Julia. You stirf got so much now. Can set you share a little." I could see through her act. She was trying to guilt me, using family as leverage. I took a deep breath. I worked for everything I have. Dad and I had nothing after you left. I sit not a bank. Her face hardened. You stirt so selfish, she spat. I gave you life, and this is how you repay me, Caleb muttered. Figures you stirt be like this. Dad was right about you. The argument escalated. Mom raised her voice, blaming me for her absence. If you Stute reached out, things could have been different, she said. I shot back. You left when I was 9. You sent cards, not calls. Don't Stute put this on me. Caleb yelled that I owed them for all they'd been through. The cafe went quiet, but I stood firm, scraping my chair back. I said, I'm done here. I don't owe you anything. Mom grabbed my arm, warning, you'll regret this, Julia. I pulled away, walking out without looking back. My chest ached with fury and grief. But that afternoon, my apartment buzzer rang. Mom and Caleb had returned, uninvited. Mom's smile was tight. Caleb leaned against the wall, scrolling his phone. I let them in, hoping to avoid another scene. They sat on my couch, Mom clutching her purse. Caleb sprawled like he owned the place. Mom asked about my job, probing too pointedly, about my earnings. Then she sharpened her tone. You such are doing so well, Julia. Why can Sachu help us? Caleb deserves a chance. Caleb nodded. Yeah, it's Sucher's not like you Sucher broke. Their insistence felt like a trap. I kept my answers vague. When I stepped away to grab water, Caleb was at my desk, laptop open. What are you doing? I snapped. Just checking it out, he shrugged. Mom jumped in. We were just curious. Why hide it? Her words confirmed my fears. They were after my finances. I yanked the laptop away. You don't touch my stuff, I said firmly. Checking the screen, I saw login attempts and browser tabs open to my banking site. My mind raced to Dad. Mom had mentioned knowing about my salary. And now this. I opened my email and found a forwarded message from Dad's account, detailing my job and pay, sent to Mom. She had hacked his email, betraying his trust to probe my life. You hacked Dad's email, I demanded. Mom paled but didn't deny it. Instead, she lashed out, your dad's a failure, Julia. I had to know how you turned out so well, Caleb added. Yeah, he's a loser. I stepped forward, voice steady, despite rage. Get out, or I'm calling the police. Mom's composure cracked. Caleb scoffed, but didn't stop me. I dialed 911, though hadn't pressed call yet. Mom grabbed Caleb, warning, you're making a mistake. We're not done. I locked the door, hands trembling. Logs confirmed multiple failed login attempts, proof they'd been digging for my financial details. Mom's hack of Dad's email wasn't just a violation, it was evidence of her true intentions. She never cared about us, only what she could take. I called Dad. When I told him, he sighed. That's Marie, he said quietly. He confirmed his email had been compromised. Hearing how she'd violated his trust again was crushing, but it strengthened my resolve to protect us. The next day, I contacted my lawyer, Mark Sullivan. Reviewing screenshots and evidence, he said, this is serious. We filed for a restraining order against Mom and Caleb, citing unauthorized access and attempted fraud. Weeks later, the court granted a permanent restraining order barring them from contacting me or coming near my home. Days later, my bank alerted me to a blocked $10,000 transfer. Mom trying again despite the order. My accounts were secure, thanks to the precautions I'd taken as a data analyst. Mark filed a follow-up with the court to ensure consequences if she tried again. Over the next year, I learned more. Mom's sister, Aunt Ruth, reached out with stories of Marie's lifelong manipulation and lies. Mom and Caleb's social circle shrank as relatives cut ties. I started seeing Dr. Ellen Brooks, a therapist who helped me unpack the trauma and let go of guilt. I realized Mom's absence was her failure, not mine. Inspired, I founded a small charity in Orlando to support kids from struggling families, offering scholarships and mentorship. Friends helped me launch it. Kara, a social worker, Na, a fellow analyst, and Ryan, my neighbor, spreading the word. Their support reminded me I wasn't alone. Dad remained my anchor, visiting often and enjoying the life I'd built. Friends became my chosen family, people who showed up without expecting anything, celebrated my wins, and supported me through setbacks. One evening I realized I already had family, and that was enough. Family isn't always blood, it's the people who choose you, respect you, and stay. To everyone listening, thank you for hearing my story. Family is what you make it. Surround yourself with those who lift you up and see your worth. Share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories like mine.